Well, I was born in Gulf County, Kansas, as a farm boy, and finished high school at Gulf, Kansas in 1942, and just helped on the farm until I was inducted into the Navy in the spring of 1944. I was 19 when I went in service. We got a train to the Great Lakes, Illinois, and that's where I took my basic training at boot camp. And from there we went to Shoemaker, California. It's a small place east of San Francisco, about 18 miles. Nothing more than a receiving center where they brought recruits in, and then they separated them to whatever their needs were, Army, Navy, Marines, whatever. And at that time they were putting together a force they called it the Amphibious Force, and its primary goal was to invade the islands on their way to Tokyo. And that's what we did. We went to San Diego then with a group, and we took our basic training in amphibious landings in San Diego. When that was completed, we went to Astoria, Oregon by train and got on a new ship built by Kaiser Building Company, and down on the Astoria was the name of the little town along the Columbia River, south of Portland, Oregon. And that was the beginning of our seafaring days. You had your duties. You had to stand and watch every night. You hardly ever got a full night's sleep. And then during the day there was cleaning that you had to do, and there was painting, and there was work constantly. And of course, you know, whatever job you had there, the cooks and everything, it's just like a small town. A ship out there afloat, there was at times over 2,000 people on it, and that's as big as Oakley, Kansas, or some of the towns around into a small area. And it takes cleaning and planning and work to keep them going. Well, it was a stressful time. It was something I had read about, heard about, but you never know what your reaction is. You don't know what your feelings are until you come face to face with it. And then, I suppose, different people approach it in a different way. To me, it was not a hard-fought reasoning, you know, that I had to deal with. I had a job that I knew what I had to do. I was trained for it, and I just did it. And it bothered me a good deal more than I ever thought it was. I didn't think it had bothered me. I thought I was riding along, you know, without being bothered, but after the war was over, I got really sick, and I suffer some results from it yet today. Went back to our ship, and we had tied up to the ship, and they was getting ready to lift our boat out of the water for the evening, and then they sent word over the loudspeaker for us to cast off and go over to an LST and get fuel for our boat, and get some food for the evening. And then we was out in that small boat the rest of the night. The wind blowing and raining, and that was the longest night of my life, I think. I didn't think that sun had ever come up. The reason they did this, it made us cast off, you know, because there was a bunch of ships out there in the area right east of the island, all gathered up there, and they were sending over these Comitatus planes from Japan. It's just a small plane loaded with explosive, and the pilot, his objective was to fly that into a ship and blow it up. And that's what they were doing. They would send these over. The pilots had no chance at all of going back home alive. It was suicide missions. We just went up and unloaded our cargo and whatever we had on the boats, and then we could leave. I had so much respect for those poor Marines that went ashore and had to stay there. They had no shelter, nothing to get behind, and my hat goes off to them fellas. I was on the ship that morning. They lifted our boat out of the water, and we was aboard ship and got something to eat and probably fueled up, I guess. Anyway, while we was on there, come over the loudspeaker that they were raising the flag over the island. And of course, all you had to do was just look up like this, and it was just like looking up top of an elevator here, you know. You could see them doing it up there. Of course, all the ships in the area was blowing their horns, and it's quite a commotion going on while they did that. And I thought, never thought anything about it at the time, but I thought, good, maybe we can go home now. Well, after we went from Iwo Jima, we went to Okinawa, and we worked there a few days, probably a week or so. We didn't do much. On my boat crew, we had a burner put on the back of our boat, and whenever these Kamatadas planes would come over, well, our duty was to go out and lay out a smoke screen around them instead of them separating. We laid out a smoke screen and we covered them up to where they couldn't see us. All they could see was a big cloud down below them, and that's all I did there. That's all our ship did there, really. And then after that, we went somewhere along the line, a bearing went out in the back of our ship, and we had to have a new 8-foot shaft, 8 foot of shaft put in it, and it had to be brought from the States. So we was in dry dock for quite a little while. My brother, he was killed over in Germany. He was in the medics. He was with 3 other boys, and they were out on the battlefield picking up and giving medical aids to wounded, and bringing them back to the hospital and for treatment. And as far as I know, they run over a landmine and blew him up and killed my brother instantly. One of them was a vegetable from that day on, and the other, and he survived out of the 3 of them. But that happened on February the 25th. I went into Iwo Jima on February the 19th. I did not know of his death for probably a month and a half, 2 months later. I went to Washington, D.C. 3 weeks ago with a group of veterans from out there, and I was really touched the way the people treated us. It was awesome. It really was. I get tears in my eyes yet thinking about it.